Sure. Actually, I'm not sure if, sure. So thanks for your patience, everyone. As Jeff mentioned, my name is Katie Carter. I'm a meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Wakefield. I am a new employee in a brand new role to support decision support services, specifically for VDEM. So you'll probably be hearing me more frequently on these briefings. And if you have a role within VDEM, then you'll definitely be hearing me give some briefings. But this weather briefing is going to cover today through Sunday, and let's get started. So the general highlights here, it is going to be a milder start. We already know that it's a wet start to the week. Another round of heavier rain is expected Tuesday night through Wednesday. And when all is said and done, actually most of the state's going to be seeing a pretty good soaking rain through the middle part of the week. We're not anticipating severe storms, though thunderstorms are possible ahead of the cold front that comes Tuesday night into Wednesday. And because the rain is going to be happening over a somewhat lengthy period of time, not all at once. We're not expecting heavy downpours. It's not going to be a widespread flooding event, though it certainly could be some low-lying areas or maybe areas where leaves get in the drains type of situation where we see some minor flooding. But even with the amounts up to 3 inches in a few areas, we're not expecting major impacts from this rain this week. Later part of the week, we're expecting colder and drier air to move in as high pressure builds, and then another system possible for Saturday night into Sunday. The marine side of things, small craft advisory conditions expected Tuesday night and Wednesday, and then winds really start to ramp up. We could be seeing gale conditions Wednesday night into early Thursday with that cold front arrival. So this week's weather pattern, again, kicking things off. Today, we have some showers lingering. Those will clear out by about midday or so. Middle of the week is really the rainiest part, that cold front arrival Tuesday night into Wednesday. You can see that weather pattern on the East Coast, all the way at Maine, all the way down to Florida. It's a pretty significant rainmaker here on the East Coast. So we will definitely tap into that and get widespread rain here in the Commonwealth. When that system moves on out, not only are we going to be drying out, but we'll also be cooling off pretty significantly later into the week. So coming out of last week, it was pretty chilly, milder for the weekend that we just got out of, and then we'll return back to some cooler air for the end of the week. The weekend ahead, kind of 50-50, we'll see another shot at some rain chances Saturday night into Sunday. So as I already kind of alluded to at the beginning, we're not expecting severe storms, although we could be seeing a few thunderstorms with this cold front's arrival Tuesday night into Wednesday. So again, today, with the rain moving through, we don't have any rain or any storm or severe weather potential. Looking ahead to the Tuesday front, you see that marginal risk, there's no marginal risk, it's the thunderstorm. So typically when we talk about the severe weather threat, it's the 1 through 5. You see the categories at the bottom. We're not even in that, we're just in the thunderstorm threat. So a few rumbles of thunder, maybe some pockets of heavier rainfall if we see a thunderstorm or two, but this is not a severe weather event that we're looking at, just a pretty decent rainmaker. Now, as we get into Wednesday, you'll see that thunderstorm threat is pushed off to the eastern part of the state and up to the eastern shore. Again, no severe weather threat, just the possibility of a few thunderstorms. Heavy rainfall potential is going to be there in the southwestern part of the state Tuesday. So remember that cold front arrives Tuesday overnight into Wednesday. So as it moves through in the western part of the state, we could be seeing some heavier rainfall. But again, I'm not looking at a widespread event where we see excessive rainfall causing a lot of issues. It's just those typically flood-prone areas. Wednesday, as that system continues to move across the Commonwealth, same story here. There might be a few pockets where we see some heavier rainfall over a shorter period of time, but not much of an impact. So now getting to the nitty gritty over the next 72 hours, what are we really looking at for those rain totals? So here in the Wakefield CWA, we're looking at a really good rainmaker, at least 1.5 to 2 inches. This is a widespread event. I'm not looking at pockets of showers here and there. This is that cold front moving through, bringing everyone a pretty good amount of rain. So 1.5 to 2 inches widespread for the area up to the eastern shore. And then you'll notice that sort of darker yellow band to the north of Richmond and west. That area is looking at upwards of 2 to 3 inches of rainfall. So a pretty good rainmaker. And again, this is Tuesday night through Wednesday. First rounds of rain exit by this afternoon, with that second round Tuesday into Wednesday. Now, this is a look at the worst case scenario here. So a few of the models are trending on the higher side of things for parts of the Metro Richmond area along I-95. Really, I mean, most of the area could be seeing on the worst end 3 to 4. Now, I don't want to mislead you by saying that, you know, if we see some areas that are on the higher end of things, it's not going to be all of this map sees 3 to 4 inches. It's just an area here or there that could be seeing more than 3 inches. Again, this is just model-based worst case scenario. Pockets that see some of that heavier rainfall could be those areas that we see some pooling or ponding on the roadways, but not a widespread event. So really we're looking at 3 inches with up to 4 being that worst case scenario. So now let's take a step back and look at the greater state view here, giving you an idea. We saw how it's going to be a big system impacting the entire East Coast. So putting it into perspective where Virginia is in this, you see we're all at the very least in that light yellow. So 1.5 to 2 inches at the very least across the state. A good swath of band. I don't know if you can see my pointer on the screen here, but getting into that slightly darker yellow, a good part of the Commonwealth, at least 2 inches in that 2 to 3 band. And then it's showing this little pocket here in Southwest Virginia, possibly 3 to 4 inches. So it's possible that we could be seeing a few areas reaching up to 3 inches, but majority of us going to stay around that 2 to 3 inch amount through, really the rain goes through Wednesday, and you can see how temperatures drop off. Here's a look at some of our cities and the high temps. So notice how we're pretty mild today through Wednesday. And when that cold front moves through Wednesday night into Thursday, you'll see we drop from the low 60s down into highs in the 40s. So we're really getting a cold shot of air, not only during the daytime, but returning those overnight lows back well below freezing. So we definitely have some lows in the 20s come Thursday and Friday. And you see temperatures rebound, you know, kind of back to seasonable as we get back into the weekend. So it's not like we're going to be stuck there with the cold air heading into the weekend and all of next week. It's kind of a just, you know, brief blip here where we see some cooler air Thursday, Friday, and then we'll rebound a little bit heading back into the weekend. Taking a look at the rainfall amounts that we're looking at, you can see some of our cities that we have pulled out, just giving an idea of the rainfall values. You can see a few of the yellows popping out in particular. So a few locations showing on the slightly higher end in the western part of the view, in the area. So Farmville coming in at 2 to 3 inches, same in that range with Louisa, but generally speaking, most of us are in that 1.5 to 2 inch category range. All right, if you have any questions, we'll save them to the end, but now I'm going to toss it back to Jeff, who's going to take over for the marine side of things.
All right, switching gears. Yeah, thank you, Katie. So I'm going to kind of just go through the marine forecast for this week. Kind of almost a load and repeat of a little bit of what we had last week, but maybe not quite as intense. Just looking at the marine probabilities here, the far left, this is kind of the probabilities here of small craft advisory conditions. So definitely expecting small craft advisory conditions to set up later this week, especially midweek. Even the gale conditions, you can see here in the bay, we have at least a low probability of gale conditions there on the Chesapeake Bay. And then even once you get into coastal waters, really pretty likely in the oranges there, a probability that we'll be getting into some at least gale force gust. And that's mainly going to occur, I'd say, right ahead of the front, and especially right behind the cold front as it comes through. Probability of storm conditions here all the way on the far right. And it does even show a low probability here, especially from Chincoteague north, maybe low end chance of storm. So that kind of gives you a sense that there could be some pretty high gusts out there on the waters, maybe getting up into the 40 knot range here as we get, you know, especially behind that front Wednesday night into Thursday. So we're not expecting storm conditions, but just kind of interesting that it shows a low probability of storm conditions. So we are expecting gales on the coastal waters in the bay. So kind of breaking it down day by day. Today is kind of marginal. We do have a small craft advisory for the middle and upper parts of the Chesapeake Bay. We kind of have that south wind make it a little bit gusty, especially after the showers stop. After the rain ends, the winds could pick up a little bit this afternoon. And so that's why you see the bay there lighting up orange, where we might be able to get into that 18 to 20 knots of a south wind gusting. But on the coastal waters, for the most part, just not expecting any small craft advisory conditions. For Tuesday night, you see everybody gets into the orange, so we are expecting those small craft advisory conditions to start to kick in later on Tuesday, with that increasing south to southwest wind. And by the time you get into Wednesday, especially Wednesday night, we're seeing a lot of the red now. We're getting into potential gale conditions with gusts to around 34 knots on the bay, as well as the coastal waters. And so this is really initially going to be a south and southwest wind. So probably not a really rough wind at first, with the wind coming out of the south. Being usually we don't see as the seas build quite as fast with the south wind, but then the winds are going to become west and northwest late Wednesday night and early Thursday morning with this. And so by the time you get into Thursday night and Friday, I think we may start out early Thursday morning with a little bit of gale conditions here, but by the time we get into Thursday afternoon, I think everybody's going to be coming down into small craft advisory conditions, which you see here in the orange. So still breezy, northwest, probably gusting up to 30 knots in the afternoon, but it looks like the gale conditions will be kind of decreasing as we get through the day on Thursday. And by the time you get into Friday night, even Saturday, the marine conditions continuing to improve pretty quickly as high pressure builds down. So I think by the time you get into Friday afternoon, Friday night, especially Saturday, the winds will have decreased quite a bit. So this kind of shows you just what the peak wind gusts are looking like out there. So again, I think we're going to see some peak winds of about 34 to 35 knots there on the Chesapeake Bay, 35 to even getting up to 40 knots here on the coastal waters. You're starting to see that 40 to 45 knot wind gusts here on the far right hand edge here of the graphic, especially once you get offshore of Assateague and Ocean City out here towards Fenwick Island. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see some gusts out there getting close to 40 knots, where you saw that low probability of storm conditions. But for everybody else, going to be pretty breezy. This will start out again, kind of be a southwest wind there as you get into Wednesday night, and then overnight Wednesday night, winds become west and northwest, and by the early morning hours on Thursday, we'll have a pretty good northwest wind at about 34 knots, maybe 35 to 40 on the coastal waters. And so again, you see it here on the bay. You definitely see those higher waves on the eastern part of the bay, but pretty much solidly 3 to 5 foot on the bay as we get through Wednesday, especially on Thursday. And on the coastal waters, anywhere from, I'd say, 6 to upwards of 10 feet once you get way offshore out here with some of those stronger winds they're expected later on this week. So going to be some pretty nautical marine conditions, kind of breaking it down, kind of every 6 hours at different locations. Definitely see that southwest wind today. Maybe get a little bit gusty this afternoon, but then not as bad as we get into tomorrow morning and even tomorrow afternoon. Maybe we get some gusts of 20 knots. But you see those southwest winds really do increase as that pressure gradient tightens ahead of the front there. Basically early Wednesday morning into Wednesday afternoon, really getting us some pretty good wind gusts here. And that front starts to sneak through late Wednesday night. By about midnight Thursday, we're starting to go northwest, and we kind of remain west and west-northwest there on Thursday as the cold air surges in. But the winds do seem to decrease here Thursday night and then into Friday. So really just looking at that period of wind there, Wednesday, really through the day, Wednesday night, and into maybe early Thursday morning. And you see the timing of the seas here kind of building there, especially at Fenwick Island offshore, where you could see those wind gusts getting close to 40 knots. So that's why it could build up to 10 feet way out there off of Ocean City. But everybody else pretty much sitting in the 4 to 6 to 7 foot sea range with those stronger winds. And then on the bay, again, we're kind of running anywhere from the low end 2 feet upwards to about maybe 4 to 5 feet on the Chesapeake Bay. One thing we're going to have to watch out for again this week, unfortunately, with the winds being strong out of the west and northwest, we're kind of in that mid-tide cycle right now. We're not in a high astrotide cycle. So we're going to have to watch out for blowout tides again. I don't know if it's going to be as extreme as last week. Last week was pretty extreme. But you notice here we're already forecasting at Sewell's Point, getting down to less than a foot below low water. Same thing here at the Bay Bridge Tunnel. Even at Ocean City, I think we're going to make a run at going a foot or more below low water. And it is a bay up in Yorktown. So I think the middle, especially the lower bay and the coastal sites, are going to see these blowout tides. It looks like the first blowout tide does happen late Wednesday night or early Thursday morning, depending on where you are. And there may be another one coming, as you get into Thursday night, early Friday. We don't quite forecast out that far, but I think with the later updates, you might see another really low tide there as those northwest winds kind of blow a little bit getting into late Thursday night, early Friday. I don't know if it's going to be as low as this one Wednesday night, just because the wind should decrease and maybe that'll allow the water to come back in a little bit. But just kind of heads up, we may be getting into low water again later this week, which could cause some navigation issues there during that low tide. And we don't want to forget about the drought. We didn't get much rain, so the drought has continued to expand across the area. Really all of central Virginia now is in what I guess we'll call a moderate drought. And then even the severe drought has expanded. And we even have extreme drought here now up in parts of Maryland. So the drought has continued to expand. I mean, we don't have anything growing right now. So that's the good news, I guess. We're not really in pick-packing agriculture. This is our recharge time of year, so this rain that's coming is very welcome. This steady rain, this is what we need, and it's happening statewide all the way back to the mountains. So we'll see how the drought conditions might change later on this week and early next week with this rain, but we have continued to kind of see a worsening drought conditions, and hopefully that does improve with all this rainfall. And looking ahead out to the 8 to 14 days, you did notice that those temperatures did start to get back to normal in the later parts of the forecast and into next week. That will continue, probably near normal to maybe a slight chance that we could be above normal temperatures getting out to the next 8 to 14 days. And precipitation-wise, probably going to be running right around near normal, not super wet, maybe hopefully not super dry either after this. So we'll see how that plays out. But looks like we're going to see mostly normal conditions here going out to the next 8 to 14 days. So nothing too extreme. So that's the briefing for this week. I'll leave up the summary slide here and go ahead and stop the recording.